Welcome to the Biz Kidz Podcast, where young entrepreneurs rise, shine, and redefine what is possible. Ready to launch your business? Well, buckle up. We're about to launch. Welcome to the Biz Kidz Podcast. I'm your host, JD Rabali, and today we have with us Jay Owen. Jay Owen has been in business for quite a while, does a lot of coaching, does a lot of marketing, and we want to hear from him and his story today. So Jay, as we always start off, give us your 60-second pitch of who you are and what you do.
For sure. You know, a lot of people get confused with what to do next in the business world, and especially with all the AI craziness that's out there. Things are changing faster than ever. And so one of the things I've done is put together some resources that people can access for free at aiwithj.com. So just go to aiwithj.com. You can download my AI resource guide. And I really believe that for people of all ages, whether it's young kids or old adults in later stages of life, understanding some of these fundamentals is going to be paramount to the next 10, 20 years of business and life in really all categories. So aiwithj.com, some free resources there for anybody that's listening.
Awesome. And so we always like to start off in your childhood, and no, this is not a therapy session. We just want to go back. When did you first notice that you kind of had that entrepreneur spirit? Did you have a side hustle, a side gig that you were making money as a kid?
Yeah, this is a fun conversation because I don't get to talk about this a whole lot. Because I don't usually go back this far, but people always ask, like, are entrepreneurs born or made? And I think it's like the question of nature versus nurture. I think the answer is both. Like, I think you can be born with it kind of in your blood a little bit, just based on personality style. People, for example, who are a little bit dyslexic, like I am, tend to be more entrepreneurial. People who are a little ADHD, which I also am, tend to be a little more entrepreneurial. So some of that's like baked in, from birth. And then being around other people makes a big impact. So for me, the first business that I can remember running, other than like maybe a lemonade stand on the corner, was I ran a concession stand out of my little red wagon when I was about 8 years old. And we were at the baseball field. And back then at this particular field near our house, they didn't have a concession stand. And my mom took me to Sam's Club at this time. We loaded up some snacks and some drinks, and I wheeled my little red wagon around that field and sold concessions out of it. Now, today you probably need a permit for that, but back then you didn't. And then I started a lawn business when I was 12. I remember sitting at my uncle's house one day. He's helped me a lot in business over the years. And he's like, you need kind of a catchy name for it. And we came up with this acronym. And I wish I had this design because I still remember it was also one of the first things I ever designed. And it was a flyer with a house on it. And it had an acronym down the side, JAYS. And it was Jay's Action Yard Service. And so down here in Florida, the grass grows fast. And so many 12 to 16-year-old boys at some point are out pushing a lawnmower and asking somebody else to give them money for it. And those were the early days of entrepreneurhood for me. And I was pretty hooked.
Well, we have a lot of similarities. So my first business, I sold cucumbers door to door. So the same thing. I'm dyslexic as well. And so that was kind of my way to find my kind of place was to find business. That's where I kind of got my energy from. I always hated school. I would rather make money than go to school. Mm-hmm. And then I started a lawn care business about the same age, probably 12 or 13, which ended up actually being a full-time business for me. And I had it for 23 years. And so, we have a lot of similarities there. So after you started the lawn business, kind of got into that college years, did you go to college? Did you venture off into a business right away? What did you do?
Well, before college, I actually started the business that I run today when I was in high school. So I started building websites when I was a kid. I realized very quickly that Florida heat and sun was not something I really wanted to work in. And I'm a nerd at heart, so I love technology. I love computers, and started building websites right about the time the internet came around, which I was probably 11, 12-ish years old. Super basic stuff back then. And when I was 16, I actually got an internship at a company here in Jacksonville, Florida, which was awesome because I got to spend a summer learning around adults who did this stuff for a living. And they paid me probably about the same that Publix would have paid me to bag groceries, but I would have been worth doing if they had not paid me anything because I learned so much just being there. They actually kept me on after that summer and let me work from home. They gave me a computer to take home and work from home. So they literally had a 16-year-old on staff at that point. And then when I was 17, I actually started the business that I run today. I was a junior in high school. Back Back then, the company was called Design Extensions. We changed the name eventually, and now it's called Business Builders. We're a marketing company that help people get attention and acquire customers. And that was 26 years ago. So it's grown every year from a few $1,000s that first year when I was 17. I think the total revenue was around $5,500. And we'll do millions of dollars this year in total revenue.
So what kind of advice would you give to kids that are looking at, getting into business that maybe not have established a web presence yet because they're selling, like a lot of our events where the kids just sell products, like either sell lemonade or cookies or what would you say to kind of get them started and like where should they kind of put their foot down first to say, hey, this is the way I need to go?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about like when I kind of got into business and years before even all that, when I was in I guess I would have been in middle school. I volunteered at the local library, which is ironic because I'm dyslexic, so I'm a very slow. I can read, but I'm a very slow reader. But I remember reading a book about entrepreneurship, and this was before really the internet was a thing where you can just go Google something, or now you can just ask ChatGPT. But I was curious, and I think that's one of the number one traits of an entrepreneur. And for parents that are listening, if you see a child who's exceptionally curious about things, they're often the ones who will be the most successful in business, especially business for themselves. And then as people are thinking about what kind of business should I run or how do I get into business, a lot of times we focus on like what's our passion, what are we good at? Those aren't necessarily bad things, but we need to quickly shift to the question of what problem am I solving? At the end of the day, business is pretty simple, and that is that the product or service that we're providing to someone is more valuable than the money in their bank account. That's why they're willing to give us the money in their bank account, because the product or service we're giving them is a better exchange. It's no different than the barter system back in the day, right? Somebody has a whole bunch of eggs because they have a lot of chickens. Somebody else has got a goat, so they got goat's milk. But I got too many eggs, but I don't have any milk. I'm willing to trade some of my eggs for the milk. And it's the same thing with money and products and services. So the question people need to ask and kids need to ask is, what problem am I solving? And then second to that is, am I in the right place? Let's take the lemonade stand, for example. This is a really good example. A lot of times kids will set up a lemonade stand in a place where people don't need or want lemonade. At the front of a neighborhood where people are driving in and out. It's just not an ideal spot. The person's already in their car. They're driving around. It's awkward for them to stop. If they do, it's usually out of just kind of like, I just want to help these kids out, not because I necessarily want or need lemonade. Now, if I were to move that lemonade stand over to the community pool where everybody's hot and they've been sitting out in the sun and now they'd like something cool to drink, I'm going to sell exponentially more. Why? Because I'm solving a problem for the people where they're at. That's why the little red wagon at the baseball field where there's no concession stand worked, because people are out there all day. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They either didn't bring snacks and drinks themselves or they've used up what they brought. And so I'm solving a problem. I'm meeting people where they're at. It's not about me. It's about the customer and the person that I'm serving. The sooner that you can get that in your head, the better off you're going to be and the more successful you'll be.
Absolutely. So we have a young lady that did a lemonade stand at one of our events, and it was on the 4th of July weekend at a big complex. And she came to us, and I've told this story on the podcast many times. So if you've heard it before, I'm sorry. But she came to the program and she said, I'm going to sell lemonade for $7 a cup. And I said, $7 a cup? I'm like, that's a little high. But she got the right location. She was killing it because it was a hot day. It was 4th of July. She had a line around her booth all day selling lemonade. She sold $1,000 worth of lemonade in about a 5-hour event. So if you ever thought, hey, lemonade stand, I'm going to make a couple bucks, she make $1,000 in a day. So you never know what's going to happen. So have your kids showed any interest in entrepreneurship? I see you have some kids. I don't know what ages they are.
Yeah, I have 5 kids. They range in age currently from 12 to 20. And they're all very different, as kids and all of us are. My oldest is a musician, so he does make money, kind of, I guess you could call this a business, doing lessons for other kids and things like that. My second son is probably the most like me with regards to the entrepreneurial spirit side. He also is dyslexic, so I guess he can thank me for that. But it may turn out to be a gift if he understands how to harness it properly, and I think he's learning that really well. He does and has done a lot of the things that I do, which is social media media management, shooting videos for clients, going and doing photos for clients, and then finding ways to package those up and deliver them to them. And so, for example, I mean, he recently had a contract with a company where, I mean, they were paying him close to $1,000 a month to help out with quite a few things that he was doing. And the amount of time that he was actually spending was fractional compared to anything else he could have done to go get a job somewhere else. And so, yeah, I always encourage them to chart their own course. They don't have to do what I do for sure. And I don't think everybody's cut out to run their own business. Like, honestly, like
Oh,
people ask
absolutely.
that question, like everybody's not made for it and they shouldn't necessarily do it. And that's okay. Like we've all got our own paths and we have to figure out what that path looks like. For me, it was not school. You asked about college earlier and I dodged the question, but I basically went to college for a year and then dropped out because I had been running my business at that point for multiple years, and just decided I'd rather go make money than sit in class.
Well, and for me, a lot of people told me I was never going to make it through college. So it was kind of like I
Mm,
had to go to college just to prove them wrong that I could make it, I could do it. And so that's what I did. But I think have learned more just in my day-to-day business and my interactions with other people than I ever learned in business school. So,
oh, sure.
yeah, and then as for dyslexics, and I say this all the time, it's not a disability. So if
No.
you're a dyslexic, don't look at it as a disability. You have a superpower. You see opportunities that other people don't see. And that's where we need to focus on is like, hey, there are so many opportunities and you have that skill to be able to see those a lot better. So,
Well, I talk about this a lot too as it relates to the future in AI. So, one of the things that my 16-year-old, no, sorry, he's 18 now. My 18-year-old son, who is the dyslexic one of the group, is really good at is harnessing the power of AI because he's able to, he just thinks differently, right? His brain just sees problems from different angles, which is why so many entrepreneurs are dyslexic because their brains are actually literally wired differently. And so as a result, he can harness the power of AI to overcome all of his shortcomings. So, for example, if he's going to write you an email from scratch, even though he's had many great tutors and a lot of great education and everything else, he's just only going to be so good at spelling and grammar. Me too. And but at the end of the day, now with the power of AI, his creative ideas can now flourish because he's not going to be caught up with somebody reading his stuff going, this is, this looks like a child wrote it because it has horrible spelling and punctuation. None of that matters anymore because the AI will solve it for him. And so it's incredible to see the potential that creates in that type of brain.
and I love the fact that you bring up the AI conversation because it is getting into our daily lives as a normal thing right now. But I still have a lot of parents that consider it cheating.
Mm.
So how would you come across on that? And especially when you're using it to help in your schoolwork or to do a project. I've had a lot of parents say, "Well, we're not going to have our kids use AI because it's cheating."
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I understand the argument, and there's some good positions on both sides. I think it's a little bit of both and, though. My current position would be children do need to learn how to read. They do need to understand basic math. Now, I think our education system's generally broken in many different ways anyway. That's why all my kids are homeschooled, but that's a whole nother topic. Um, but for example, I just taught a 14-week class on AI for my kids' homeschool co-op. There are about 30 kids in this class, ranging in age from about 9th to 12th grade. And I would say that the class was pretty evenly split between kids who were very pro AI and kids who were kind of anti AI. And most of that just comes from them hearing what their parents are saying. And so they're just kind of regurgitating what they're hearing in the home, which happens a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and what I wanted to teach them was how to not use it as a replacement for thinking, but use it as a partner or an additional assistant in the context of the work that they're doing. So I do think that it's silly to just mail it in, scan your homework into ChatGPT and ask it to do the work for you. But part of the problem is not the kids, it's the educational system as a whole, because our education system is built around functions from 50, 70 plus years ago, where the world was very different. And so it's still built around things like, how do I memorize content and then regurgitate it on a test or an essay or a paper? And that's not the future. The future is, however, learning how to problem solve and how to use all the tools and resources that we have in order to navigate it. And so the bigger problem that I would be concerned about to the parents who are like, I'm not going to let my kids use AI at all, is they're just going to be left behind. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. If your children are not equipped to understand how to use this technology for the future, you're going to have a problem. Now, look, it's like anything. Like certain things, should be added at certain ages. And so I might not give it to my 5-year-old to just freelance on their kindergarten work. But when I get to certainly the late middle school, early high school ages, I want my kids to be trained on how to leverage these things to solve bigger and better problems than they could have otherwise. And so that's why I taught this class for these homeschoolers. And it was awesome to see the projects that they produced afterwards, from kids who created full-blown video games to mobile applications to animated videos to audiobooks, all by themselves in partnership with AI tools. And when you see the outcomes that these kids created, it's not like they're just mailing it in, like somebody's just typing in one prompt and boom, there's the answer. Because I could show you all of the things that these kids created in this class, and almost nobody listening to this podcast could actually go create it themselves without some extensive training on how to use the right tools to get there. And so to me, the argument is like, look, we used to dig ditches with shovels, and then eventually somebody invented the backhoe. Now, if you want to be out there digging ditches with shovels still, go for it.
Like, that's cheating.
Yeah, but the backhoe's not cheating. It's just a more efficient way of doing things.
Absolutely. So what would be one tool that you're using in your kind of day-to-day operations for your business that you would say, hey, this is a great one, you guys should go check out?
I mean, at a fundamental level, it's really just understanding how to operate within things like ChatGPT or Claude. Most people are not even leveraging the basic fundamentals of those tools to move forward. In fact, I just taught an AI fundamentals workshop to mostly adults. I think there were a couple of kids on the call too, or a couple of teenagers, and teaching them the fundamentals of how to use these things day in and day out. And even things like managing my email. I run the company here at Business Builders. I also help lead a large team at a large church. I also have 5 kids and a marriage I'd like to keep. I also have a couple other side projects like an agency builders community and this AI with Jay thing that I mentioned. So I got a lot of stuff going on. And so I'm trying to leverage tools all the time. I just started using one that will actually draft responses to my emails for me based on my prior emails. So it's reading my prior sent emails, guessing how I want to reply to this, writing a draft to it. So in the morning when I get into my inbox, it's already drafted responses to all the emails that are in my inbox. Now, I'm going to tweak 90% of them. Almost none of them am I just going to hit send and let it ride at this point. But it gets me 80% of the way there. And so the time that it saves me on the business side is just exponential.
What's the program called?
This particular one is called Fixer, F-Y, let me find it real quick and I'll tell you.
I got to look that one up because I hate responding to emails.
F-Y-X-E-R. It's an AI executive assistant, basically. It'll tag all my emails in the right categories, automatically draft replies, and really an incredible resource.
That's awesome. Yeah. So as we look going into, if you're getting kids involved in business and you're talking to them about using AI as kind of as a way to kind of help them brainstorm ideas, what do you think the other biggest obstacle for kids to actually get out there and try is?
The obstacle to them using AI, you mean?
Oh no, what other obstacles are they running into, do you think, that are preventing kids from like actually getting into business?
Fear is the biggest one, being worried that I'm not going to be successful. I think especially in our social media driven world where it seems like everybody's successful and lives perfect lives all the time. It's just not true, And so I think that the fear of failure is one of the biggest things that holds most people back, kids and adults. And at the end of the day, what you'll learn, and you certainly know, I'm sure, for being in business for so many years, is that most of us have a lot more failures than we do successes. And the difference is a successful long-term entrepreneur learns how to stand on top of their failures instead of lay under them. And that it really is it. It's like, yeah, that didn't work. Oh, that kind of worked. Maybe we could double down on that. And so the number of things that I try that don't work are exponentially higher than the number of the ones that do, but I'm just willing to move on and recover and try another thing.
Yeah, and I think have you ever watched Meet the Robinsons, the Disney
Hmm.
film?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a kind of our fundamental of our program is celebrate the failures.
yeah.
Anytime a student comes through and it didn't work the first time when they're out there trying to sell their product, I celebrate that with them. I'm like, hey, this is great because now we know what we need to change, what we can focus on to make different, we're going to make it better for next time. So celebrate those failures because that's part of the process. So
Yeah, it is. It's a mind shift thing. It's like it's not winning and losing. It's winning and learning. I either won or I learned. And if I failed, if something didn't work out, um, gosh, the number of times I've done stuff, whether it's hiring somebody or working with a particular client or trying a new product or service, that was just a total and complete flop. If I r- thought about those things too much, I'd probably get a little depressed. Instead, I go, okay, what can we learn from this? And let's not do it again. Let's keep moving.
And then what would your advice on mentorship and getting involved in networking? How important is that for a new business owner to get in and get to know the community and make partnerships and friendships and build relationships?
Yeah, it's so important. I always say that everybody needs at least these four people in their life. They need somebody to look up to, somebody who's ahead of them in life, somebody who's doing things that they'd like to eventually do. They need somebody to stand beside them, people that are standing shoulder to shoulder, doing life with them. I don't care what age you're at. These are friends. You need somebody who's looking up to you. I don't care how old you are, whether you're, an 8-year-old kid pulling a red wagon around a baseball field or you're a, 60-year-old adult trying a new entrepreneurial venture. Everybody needs somebody who they're teaching, because when we teach, we learn the most. And then last, I always say everybody needs somebody who believes in them when they don't believe in themselves. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a neighbor, whoever it is. Somebody who goes, "Hey, no, I think you've got it. I think you can do this." And on the mentorship side, I waited way too long to get the right people around me. I was fortunate that I had an uncle in my life when I was younger who knew business well, was an entrepreneur himself, and I learned a ton from him. But especially on that, like shoulder to shoulder, people to stand beside me, the peer group side. As I started, I was so young that I was scared to like show up at networking events, show up at conferences, because I didn't want to be like the young kid that didn't know anything. And I don't worry about that anymore because I got enough gray hairs and wrinkles to pass. But I wish that I had gotten in community more, because I think about, like, I run this group called Agency Builders, a bunch of agency owners and leaders from around the country who do similar work to me, that believe in collaboration over competition. And I think to myself, what would happen if an 18-year-old kid, if you will, even though they're technically adult, but 18-year-old kid walked into the room with a new business idea or a new agency? What would the other owners and leaders do? Would they shun them and think, oh, they're so young and ignorant, and they don't know what they're doing? Or would they embrace them and go, hey, we'd love to help you not make the mistakes that we made? And the answer is the second one. They would love to come alongside those people and go, hey, let me give you some ideas. I think we can help you, overcome things that maybe we didn't know. And so I made a lot of mistakes and grew a lot slower in the early years because I wasn't in the right communities. And I think that makes all the difference.
Right. Well, what would you, or how would we connect with you if we want to go through your AI program and learn more about AI and how to use that?
Yeah, the best way is the website that I mentioned at the beginning. It's aiwithj.com. I've got some free resources people can download on there. And then we'll also be sending out updates when we're offering live training courses or even recorded courses that will constantly be updated because the information is constantly changing. But that community is going to grow and grow. It's seen exponential explosion over the last few months because people want to learn these things. And I love talking about them and love teaching them.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us to kind of talk about different AI, different ideas, and your story. We love to hear stories of young entrepreneurs that took their business as a high schooler and made it into a business that you're working full time now. So thank you for being there. If you want to get your kids involved with the Biz Kidz, we have an online training program as well. It's the Biz Kidz Hub. You can find us at bizkidsusa.org, and we help give kids the mentorship they need to start and launch their programs and their products and services, and so they can get out there. We're those mentors that want to help young people, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. Don't make those same mistakes. We can help you through the process. Any last words, Jay?
No, I would just say get in community, go try things, be curious. The curious kids are the ones who are going to be the leaders in the next decade.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jay, and we'll see you next time on the Biz Kidz Podcast.
Thanks.